Have you ever considered what it would look like for you to have success or for your life to be successful? Let's talk about it here for a few minutes. Monday, one of the things that I like to start out by saying, the little phrase that I often say, is that I really want to hear the voice of God. And it comes from this core belief deep within me, and deeply theological and deeply practical, that I believe that our God is still alive. I believe that our God is not disconnected, that he is aware of what's going on in our life, and he cares, and he can speak into it. But one of the first places that we must learn to hear his voice, because any time that God speaks, it must not come out of a line with his word. And so as we would jump in, I like to say, I want to hear the voice of God, so let's tune into the scriptures. And this morning in my devotions, I found myself in 1 Samuel chapter 2, 1 Chronicles chapter 11, Psalm 142, and Matthew 14. And we won't get to all of these, but just the way that the Lord was speaking to me through these scriptures this morning. And I want to start with this thought. I've met millionaires that seem to be super successful. And so it made me begin to question, what is success? And what could it look like for me to be successful? And so in that context, is it all about the money? Would I need to be a millionaire to be successful? I've met people who have influence to thousands of people, whether it be on blogs or pastoring or communicating or what have you. So is success about the following, the number of people following? I've met a guy who lived his entire life. He's in his 50s now. He's lived his entire life just traveling and doing whatever he wanted, and he had the freedom to kind of go and do whatever he wanted to do. And he was coming to a place where he was still unhappy in his life. And so that made me think again, is self-freedom, is that what defines our success? Doing everything that we have dreamt of? I've also met people with huge families. Is that success? Is it the number of offspring that we have, or the number of kids that we have, or the number of extended family we have? What does it look like to be successful? And what important to our conversation this morning, what does it look like for me to be successful? What does it look like for you to be successful? And the way that I got thinking about this was through this time in 1 Chronicles. And it comes in with David as he is stepping into the new stages of his life as king, the king of Israel. And in 1 Chronicles 11:2, it says, "In times past, even when Saul was king, it was you who led us and brought us out of Israel. And the Lord your God said to you, you shall be shepherd of my people Israel, and you shall be the prince over my people Israel." And so people are speaking this to David. They are saying, this is what God has called you to do, and we've seen you doing this even before you had the official title. This is who you were born to be. And then we see more success come about in David's life. A few verses later, they got to Jerusalem, and the Jebusites who were in the city said, "You'll never come in here." And it says that nevertheless, David took the stronghold of Zion, that is the city of David. So there was more success there that came. He was successful in taking over the city. But did that define his success? It continues on, and this chapter in 1 Chronicles 11, it gets into listing off a bunch of names. And if I'm honest with you, a lot of times, unless I'm studying names specifically or genealogy or things like that, a lot of times when the scripture gets into listing these names, I'll just kind of tune out. But for whatever reason, I tuned in. And I was just paying attention to who these guys were, of these mighty men of David. And so it lists us off a number of people and what it looked like for them to be successful. So one guy killed 300 other guys with a spear. That's pretty crazy. And then Eleazar was a great warrior. And then it talks about these three guys who risked their lives because David said, I'm thirsty. I would love some water for this well that's in dangerous territory over here. And they risked their lives to go get this water. And then David's so shocked by it. And he's like, oh my gosh, these guys are so for me that they brought me this water and they risked their lives. How can I drink it? And he dumps it out. And then this chapter lists Abishai, another great warrior, and Benai, and he struck down 2 heroes. And then interesting wordage here, it says that he slayed a lion in a pit on a snowy day. And as we look at all of these guys, they seemingly were successful, and success looked differently for each one of them. And so what is it that would define success? What's also interesting is that all of the success of these specific guys also added to the success of David. And so it's just fascinating. And so what is it that would define their success? And the answer is within that first scripture that I read for you, where it says that God called you, God placed you. Success is defined by our obedience to God. Each of us has a different call. Each of us has different giftings. Each of us has different characteristics. And success is going to look specifically different for each of us, but it looks the same for each of us. We can all accomplish that by figuring out what God is calling us to do in our lives and going and doing that. And as we do that, we're going to see success in our own life, and we're going to help the success of other people's lives as well. And I want to just close with this. In Psalm 142, it kind of takes all of this into account, as this is a psalm that David wrote as he was in a cave. And it says in verse 7, "Bring me out of prison, that I may give thanks to your name, O God. The righteous will surround me, for you will deal bountifully with me." And so we see these two opposing views. This me being in prison and me being in this cave and me being stuck here in the darkness. And then the opposing view, the contrasting view, is me being surrounded by righteous people, those who are living according to the will of God for their lives. And so consider this question. What would it look like for you to be successful? What would it look like for you to live out what God is calling in your life? And how are the people around you helping you to get there? And how are you helping the other people in your life to get there? God bless you. Consider these thoughts. I'm praying for you this week. We'll see you tomorrow.